the whole point of this, right? Is weighing in. And I did make an assumption that we were going to talk about something very specific that is happening in the news today.
Oh yes, we will be.
That's what I assumed, and because I knew I was going to bring it up, and the reason is it is one of the topics that we don't agree on absolutely everything about, and that's why I thought it would be interesting for the two of us to chat about, what is about to happen.
Are we talking about abortion?
Possibly,
Okay.
yes. Well, actually, I'm talking about overturning Roe v. Wade, which is different than talking just about abortion.
In what way? What do you think? How is it different?
Well, I think it's overturning laws in general, because this is just one law, right, that might get overturned. My concern is if this one works, then so many other things are also on the table. So there's Roe v. Wade is a very specific law, you bet, and I'm concerned about that in and of itself. But what does this open us up to? And my first thought was, and I'm a religious person, so it's funny that this bothers me, but my first thought was mandated prayer in school. That's terrifying to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, what this is going to open up to you in terms of prayer in school, in terms of overturning gay marriage, in terms of even possibly not allowing interracial marriages. I mean, the precedence that's being set, this is the first time in American history that the Supreme Court's actually taking rights away from people. Up until this point, it's all been very progressive in terms of allowing more rights.
Yeah.
So this could be the pendulum swinging back the other direction.
And that terrifies me more than what that specific right is, right? I'm not happy that it's abortion. Don't get me wrong. I'm just like, if we start to go back, then that, oh my gosh, right? That opens up crazy doors for us.
Of course it does. I mean, and the other part of it is that, I mean, I'm very bothered by Roe v. Wade for multiple reasons, but one being it is an assault on women. It's like, if they're really concerned about pregnancies and one, they're bringing unwanted pregnancies back into the universe, right? Like they're forcing this on women. But if you want to stop pregnancies, like how about give every male a vasectomy?
Yes.
And until they are able to prove that they are financially and emotionally secure enough to be a father, then you can reverse it.
Actually, you know what, Freedom? I actually love that idea, because so my issue, we've had this discussion before. I am not a fan of regulating morality. I understand we live in a world where it's necessary at this moment, but I'd like to live in a world where it's not necessary. And that includes taking responsibility. And it takes two people that have two elements you need in order to create a child, right? A man and a woman. Just scientifically, I'm not saying that you have to be a man and woman to have children.
Right, just biologically.
Yes. I'm just saying you got to have a sperm. You can even create it in a petri dish, right? But those are 100% not unwanted pregnancies or detrimental pregnancies, right? Those are people that have paid a shit ton of money to have a baby created in a petri dish. So we don't have to worry about that necessarily. Those people have committed. Not that they're going to be good parents. That's a separate issue. But I am up to here. And I have mixed emotions about abortion in general, but I am up to here with pregnancy being 100% the woman's fault. If I hear that one more time, I will.
I know. Well, and if you even think about just biologically, right? Like a woman can have sex every single day of her life and she can still just have a baby every night, once a year, basically.
Yeah.
Right. A man can fuck a woman every day and create babies all the way through. And
Yes.
there's absolutely nothing that is done in terms, and I mean, it's like, if you're going to force women to have a baby, I mean, my problem is that if you are claiming to be pro-life, which I really have an issue with that term, because I really believe it's anti-choice,
Okay.
then you have to think about everything that's included in being pro-life: affordable housing, healthcare, education. And now you
Mhm.
have, you know, Greg Abbott in Texas talking about eliminating public education from schools.
Yeah.
So it's like, on one side of the token, they're like, we're going to force these women to have children. And then we're also, on the other side of the token, going to remove every resource available for these children to actually make it.
Well, and not only that, and that is actually, it's so funny because that is my big issue with the whole scenario is, you know, many pro-abortion. No, I was going to try and change the lingo, but pro-choice people. No. Sorry, I'm getting it all backwards. Many pro-life, or what did you call them?
Anti-choice.
Anti-choice. People profess to be Christian, right?
Mhm.
And you know, I'm constantly mortified and stressed out and turning over in my grave with Jesus. Those same people have nothing but horrible, disparaging things to say about those children once they're born,
Yeah, they put them in cages. I mean,
or
they don't-
jail, or call them
jail,
beggars, and
100%.
get
Or
a
they
fucking
don't.
job. And
And
I'm
these are
just
the
like,
same people who are also pro, like, having no issue in terms of executing people,
right.
right?
Which
It's like,
I have no
once they're
issue.
out of, it's like, once they're out of the womb,
Yeah.
they don't care. They care more about the child in utero than they do about once a baby's actually here. And even looking at the discrepancies in income equality and education equality and across the board, none of their policies do anything to actually help lift these children, a lot of them, out of poverty, because rich women are going to have the resources for abortions. They're going to be able to fly to somewhere like here, like New York, fly to Washington,
Nevada.
fly to Nevada. They're going to have resources. This is 100% impacting low income women.
Or I'll even go back one further, is well-off women have the resources to not get pregnant in the first place, so they can get birth control. They can afford the pill, which, by the way, when I was a young woman purchasing the pill, I went to Mexico to get it.
Really? Why?
Because it's so much cheaper. It's we produce their birth control. It's it's even in our packaging. It's even in English. So you drive across the border to Tijuana, and I could buy an entire year of birth control for, like, I'm going to say it was like $17. Whereas here it cost me $30 a month. This was, of course, in 1984. But so, yeah, I finally just was like, why am I paying this kind of money? So, and again, and then I got an IUD because I had insurance,
Yep.
you know.
Well, and the other scary part is now they're talking about one of the senators, I think it was Marsha Blackburn, but I could be wrong, even though it wouldn't surprise me because she's an idiot, that they only want to provide birth control for married women.
So, you know what's so funny about that is when I got my IUD, the doctor said to me, you know, are you married? And I said, no. Well, do you have a long-term boyfriend? No, I don't. She goes, well, then I can't give you the IUD. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. What?
But what is if anything, you think you would want it to have a single woman to have it because they don't have a partner, right? Like,
yeah.
And
I'm not sure that was a Kaiser policy because I had Kaiser. I wasn't 100% sure.
They
but
literally did not give it to you?
Oh no, I got it. I'm like, I said to her, if I have to produce a long-term boyfriend, I'll produce one. but I think she felt that I was ready to fight for it.
Mm.
And then she changed her mind. So part of me wondered if it wasn't her own personal religious philosophy, which
It's still a fucking like, it
over
literally
the
doesn't
edge.
make, it's so hypocritical, right?
Yeah.
Like, why would, if anything, single women should have the IUDs, because in theory you wouldn't want children to be born to a single mom. Like, their
Yeah.
life is so much worse. And I'm not saying that your life is worse because you only have a single mom. It's just so, it's hard with two parents. Like,
It's hard. Yeah.
it's just hard.
It's financially difficult. It's how do you split the time? I mean, I don't have kids. I've got cats and I'm fucking exhausted. You right? You know, I'm like, but you know what? That's again, my thing, the thing that sends me the most over the edge about it is, you know, I'm one, it's if you are against abortion,
Mhm.
I support your right to be against abortion. I wholeheartedly support your right to be that person. But I'd love for you to tell me what your plan is.
Yeah.
How are you going to help if if your only thing is to disrupt? I don't need you. We don't need you here.
Right.
Move on.
Mm-hmm.
But I just I don't know. So here's one of the things that I found interesting with a discussion I had with some friends of mine on Cinco de Mayo, when I did not spill anything on my white shirt. I was so excited about that. Is he kept saying, it's not real. It's not really going to happen.
A man was saying this.
Yes. But besides that, what do you hear that a lot? Do you hear like this is just a pipe dream of the Supreme Court and it'll never happen?
I have heard, so this was really interesting. Have you listened to The Daily in the last couple days?
Yes, but not in its entirety. So it comes and goes because I walk in and out of the room.
So it was really interesting. They were interviewing people who were anti-choice and how they felt about hearing the decision, where they were, the leak, the whole nine. And a couple things were really interesting. One, this man who has been anti-choice his entire life, he's been fighting the fight since like the 1970s. He's in his 60s now. He was like, I will not believe it until I see it, because anyone can change their mind, which he is right about that. He's actually the only person I've heard say that.
All right.
And then he also went on to say, which I thought was interesting, exactly what we were kind of just talking about earlier. He was like, our fight is just starting. Like, now we have to deal with all the women who are leaving Missouri and going to Illinois and going to other states to get abortions. Like, we need to stop them basically and make sure that they're aware of the resources available. And then he went on to say, we are also going to have to fight for affordable housing and healthcare and the things that are going to take care of these children. Because if these women don't feel like they're supported, then they don't want to have them. And it's like, no shit. This is the biggest reason why women don't want to have children.
Maybe do that first. Maybe fight for affordable housing first. Maybe, and that's one of the most brilliant seminars I've ever sat on was where it was a woman. I wish I could remember the name of the organization, and we will have to list it here for fairness reasons. But the whole seminar was on change the question, change the world. That's the answer. And she proceeded to support her philosophy. And so I've tried to approach things with that. So here's my approach to, so change the question, change the world. So anti-abortion, I got it right. Did I get it right? Yeah. Anti-choice. Should change the question. How do we get women to choose life? What do we have to do? So instead of how do we force women to stop having babies? How do we get women to choose life? I think
So
that
you're
that would-
saying that you think the anti-choice movement, that should be their question?
Yeah.
Or
it should be.
but
Their
the
question,
problem is they're still going to try to persuade women that it's not their fucking decision.
you
It's
know
just-
what though? People are allowed to have opinions, freedom.
They're allowed to have opinions, but they are also actually intruding on the rights of people to make their own fucking choice.
Sure, but we
That's the
intrude on
problem.
the rights of people every day to make choices. That's what advertisements are. I'm just saying, I am not, you know what? Sales calls don't stress me out. People on the street asking me for money don't stress me out. People holding a gun to my head or telling me it's against the law, that's different. That is an actual, hard stop for me. But your opinion doesn't stress me out. It's your
It's not
opinion.
an opinion when they're actually creating laws.
No, I agree. That's a different.
And that's the problem, is it's like they're basically making the decision for us. That's why so many women are in an uproar right now.
Right. No, but that's changing the law. That's not changing what they're trying. I'm saying changing the law isn't going to help them. It didn't help before because
No,
prior
women
to
are still
Roe
gonna
v.
have-
Wade,
women are still going to have
people were
abortions. It does
yeah.
not
So if
stop
your
abortion.
real issue is that child's life, if that's really your issue, then what can you do to help that child's life? Maybe it's not, obviously it starts way back here, right? Affordable housing, better wages, better healthcare, better education system. Let's focus on the infrastructure.
Women, how about focusing on women, making sure women are getting paid equally?
Yeah.
So much of the onus falls on women for childcare, I mean, we still have a
Almost
lot
all
of
of it.
issues, all of it. And we still
Yeah.
have an issue in this country with men thinking they take the fucking trash out and they should get a gold medal.
Which is, so let's go back to your, again, I know it's crazy, but I'm not opposed to it. Like, let's vasectomy every man in the
I'm
United States.
100% into it.
You
Do
know what?
it.
I actually love that idea. It's again, and one of the things so interesting. I have a friend whose daughter has 5 children.
Why?
Yeah, that's one of the things. She says that same thing too. And then, but what's interesting is I believe 2 of the kids' father has many, countless, and I mean that, countless children with countless women.
Mhm.
Zero responsibility. I'm irritated by the women too. I have to admit it. I'm like, when is one of you going to stand up to him and say, put on a condom? Or no, but that hasn't happened yet. And what's really interesting is he can produce kids in countless number of women for years after some women can get pregnant.
Mhm.
So he's going to be doing this for a long, 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 long time. He already has countless children. How many more is he going to have? Yeah, I think we need to catch him and snip him. That's what I think.
Can release like they do with deer.
It should release like feral cats. And then we can clip his ear. So women know. Let's clip their ears.
So this is really interesting. I was listening to this story about a woman in actually I think she was in Missouri as well. It was either Missouri or Ohio, and she had children, but she wanted to adopt a child. So her and her husband adopted a child, and then they found out like less than a year later that the same woman had another child. So she adopted the brother of the child that she adopted. And then she got another call. She literally ended up adopting 4 children that this one woman produced. And I hate using the word produced, birthed, I don't know, whatever. I don't want to make her sound like a cow, but she was a drug addict. And these children were born highly addicted to drugs. And she knew what the potential outcomes were, and she didn't care. But during this time, she was on a crusade to get women sterilized. Like if they already had a child and they were drug addicts to basically sterilize them to stop them from
Well, how do
continuing
you feel
to
about that?
I was so uncomfortable. I mean, of course I listened to it, but it was so uncomfortable at the thought of sterilizing women because, kind of to your point, what about the fucking men who are running around? I still felt like all the onus is being put on the woman, where it takes two people to have the child. And, yes, these children all have ended up fine. They're going to college, like they're doing wonderful things.
But only because they landed in a good home.
They landed in a good home. How many children are ending up in foster care? And how many people, I know for a fact from someone I know who worked at an adoption agency, that people, one, prefer white babies, one, and two, prefer babies. So once a child hits like 1 year or one, they basically consider them damaged goods.
Yeah.
And don't fucking want them. So
but we need to drive to each and every one of the homes of these people that are protesting, have the baby, and deliver that child to them.
Oh, did you see the video that went viral a couple days ago where this man went to the anti-choice movement, and these women, there were 4 of them that were all carrying a sign that said pro-adoption or adopt, don't abort, something like that. He literally went up to each of them and said, oh, well, how many children have you adopted? Not one of them had adopted. And of course, then immediately they fall back on, well, I have my own. Well, I have my own. And it's like, you can't adopt one and add it to your tribe. Like, seriously, not one of them, but they want everybody else to do it, but they're not willing to do it.
Right. Yeah. And I can tell you now, I'm not going to do it. I'm too old. I just eat. Yeah. Which actually, one of the reasons why I've not weighed in on this on anybody's social media. I've not posted on my social media. You're the only, you and my friends at dinner the other night, and I was really surprised they asked me, is my biggest issue with me weighing in on it, oddly enough, is I have never been pregnant, right? I've never had to make a decision. I've never been pregnant. I've never had children. I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask in every situation.
Yes, but you are a woman who's had a lot of sex. And what if you had ended up with a man who, like, you didn't want to have a child with?
Yeah. Actually, I started with the man I didn't want to have a child with, and then I had a lot of sex with other people. So, but you know what? But so here's my argument though. And I'm like, I'm tempering this argument because you're going to blow up at me. But
go ahead.
I made a choice not to get pregnant, and I fucking followed through on it. Not every woman has that option. I understand.
But even if women do, like, I have been pregnant, I made the choice not to have a baby.
Right.
And the biggest reason was the partner was not there. Like, I knew when I got pregnant, when my partner said to me, you were going to end up as a single mom, that was literally said to me, you were going to end up a single mom.
Right.
And I'm sure, once the baby's here, I'll love it, but like, this is not what I want. I don't want to do this. And sure, I'll take the responsibility that I could have or should have stopped it. But I also think, like, there are a lot of, and this is maybe head over heart, heart over head, body. At that point in my life, my body was almost like craving it. Like, I could not, it wasn't that I was actively trying, but I was actively not trying either. And I had stopped taking birth control years before, only because I was over 35. I knew all the risks, and birth control is way riskier than anything.
Agreed. I mean, there's a million issues to be had.
No, it's okay.
I feel like our friend wants to weigh in.
She does.
But what I was
that impression.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's interesting because I actually felt very similarly to you for a long time. Like, and I think now I acknowledge the privilege of, okay, well, I've been on birth control. I've been on this. I've been, but I probably would have got abortion if I ever got pregnant. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, kid, you have to be in the screen.
Okay. But what's really interesting is I actually tried to get pregnant with my husband, ended up doing IVF successfully,
Oh, wow.
then was on birth control and spontaneously got pregnant while on birth control again. So, and also I'm realizing now all of the horrible side effects of birth control. Like I
Yeah.
realized I wasn't having as strong orgasms. I was like constantly not acknowledging what my body was doing, realizing I had these autoimmune diseases that birth control was like suppressing. And I mean, so I just think it's like, I felt the same way for a really long time of like, well, I'm going to take an active effort not to do this. And I think that's one angle, is that it just kind of was like, oh, wow, I am privileged to have access to these things and have the sex education to know about this stuff and have partners that don't pressure me. And then the other thing is, once I was pregnant, it is fucking terrifying. If you have any sort of baby with chromosomal issues
Oh, yeah.
or anything like that, even a very wanted pregnancy is terrifying. And that was my only saving grace, is that I knew at any point, if there was anything wrong, I didn't have to carry this baby to term.
Agreed.
And like that pressure, I think often we do isolate our judgments or our viewpoints to the most extreme examples, but it
Mhm.
really should be, this bodily autonomy across the board. And I mean, I love all the points both of you are making. I just wanted to chime in because I have pushed 2 babies out of my vagina.
Yes, right. I'm unlike Freedom and I, who have not. But
Yeah.
again, even one step further, I've never been pregnant. I am fully aware of that. So I am hesitant as a woman to tell another woman what to think and feel and act, which is why I agree in general, overall, my body, my choice. I absolutely do not argue with that thought process, other than what the example Freedom just brought up. And this is again where I go back into my shell and I go, shit, we really got to think this through, is drug addicted women that are obviously not in a position to make great decisions for themselves, let alone a child. And we can't force them to stop doing drugs. So again, we change the question. What does this person need? Is it a safe
Funny.
place?
So part of this program was they would pay women to just take birth control.
Love it. I'm in.
That was all they
Or-
did. Literally just
Or
pay
just
'em.
don't criminalize abortions.
No, that's good. It's not criminalized right now. Unless you're in Texas or Georgia, right? Or something like that. But also though, interesting enough, I'm going to go back to our original statement again. And this is where I really get hot and bothered, is it's a responsibility issue for men too. So there's
Yes.
this thing called condom. I don't care that you don't like condoms. I don't care that you can't come as hard in a fucking condom. Put on a fucking condom. I don't care how hard you come anyway. I don't give a shit about you. Actually, that's not true. I care about people, but I'm like, and one of the reasons why I didn't get pregnant was, plus I was having sex during the AIDS epidemic, right? So not interested in that either. So I had to use my head as much as possible.
Yeah, of course.
I wasn't always in a position to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm fully aware that I have made mistakes and somehow got lucky, which is a miracle, because I'm like the most unlucky person I know. I was not born under the right star. Oh, well. But that's what I'm like, yeah, you know what? Why is it only the woman's responsibility for birth control? It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. And I've read about all these studies where they had birth control for men, and essentially men just didn't want to take it.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to take it. It wasn't something that was created. It was around the same time that women's birth control, and again, the onus just falls on the woman. And
Yeah.
I think that until the country really decides that they're going to put children first, which means even these babies that are born to drug addicted women, that there aren't programs put in place to ensure that they are in safe conditions, that they have all the same resources to any child in the middle class, that absolutely not. And that's not to say, I mean, the reality is that a lot of the women who are drug addicts aren't even having abortions.
No, they're not.
It's actually middle
Very
class.
few of them,
The
right?
majority, right? Like the majority of abortions literally tend to be, from what I've read and what I understand, are white women in suburbs.
Interesting.
And most abortions, it's like 60% of them are from women who already have children.
I would get an abortion. I was being lazy. I'm on the couch. I was saying if I got pregnant again, I would have an abortion.
You wouldn't?
I would.
You would.
And I have 2 kids, 2 little
Yeah.
kids. I mean, and I think, and I couldn't get, this was the horrible twist of fate is for 35 years of my life, I was trying so hard not to get pregnant. And then I was like, get me pregnant. And I couldn't get pregnant. I'm like, well, no wonder I didn't get pregnant for 30 years. I was
Really?
infertile.
I wouldn't have had to put that much energy into it.
Yeah, right. But then, I mean, it's just sort of like the whole point is you never know what you're gonna get. But now even though I have 2 lovely little gremlins, I can't handle a third. My body can't handle it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it, but now I'm fertile as fuck. So
Heads up.
that's how it works.
Hey, well, you know what? And no, I this is no offense to your partner either, so don't take this the wrong way, but you know, would he get snipped?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
So yes, he did get snipped.
Oh.
It took him over a year. Took him over a year
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
And he went like kicking and screaming, and I had to like take a day off of work to like take care
Bring
of
him ice. Some
And I
ice.
mean, now he's like a huge advocate for it. But it was so funny because I'm like, this is such a small, but he admitted, I mean, he was very open about it. He's like, there's something emotional about it. He's like, I do not want any more kids. He's like, even if, you disappear out of my life and I marry some like 20-year-old who wants 15 rabbits, he's like, it's not going to happen. I don't want kids. There's no rational reason why I don't want to get snipped. It's emotional.
Yeah.
He's like, I feel like it's taking my manlyhood.
And that's what it comes down to. Men don't want to feel inferior.
And they don't want the control taken away from them.
Right.
They don't want bodily autonomy to be told, like, to be put on them.
Yeah,
Right.
but they have
Well,
no
that
problem
and-
doing it to us.
They think their shit doesn't stink, but and they're great men out there. So do not misunderstand me.
There are.
We're not, you know me, I love men. I'm not man bashing, I'm mankind bashing, to be perfectly honest. And that is, I'm just so irritated and tired of zero responsibility. And I don't get mad at men that are anti-abortion. I don't remember whatever it is.
Anti-choice.
That's it. Okay.
Anti-choice. Just think there's pro-choice and then there's
Actually, when
don't-
I was growing up, it was pro-abortion and anti-abortion, right? Because I'm a little older than you, and that was the terminology that was used back then. It was hard enough for me to switch to pro-choice and pro-life, which is why I combined them and I call myself pro-choice of life. And that means in general. So it could be your own life. Don't misunderstand me. It could be my life. I'm
Mhm.
pro-choice of me living my life.
Mhm.
So, but I don't, it doesn't bother me at all when men weigh in, ever. It doesn't bother
they
me.
I actually totally believe men have a right to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
What I have a problem with are men making the decision. Now, Amy
Agreed.
Cohen Barrett is a part of that group, clearly, who is voting to overturn Roe v. Wade. She is a woman, but she's fucking insane. I mean, seriously, what is the comment that she said this morning? That something about, oh my God, something about like a domestic supply of infants.
That's an interesting statement.
Yeah, I'd have to look. In fact, here, let me look it up while we're talking.
Like a baby supply chain?
Yeah, she let me see. I literally saw it for 2 seconds. Yeah, here it is. Amy Cohen Barrett, Samuel Alito reference domestic supply of infants in attempts to overturn Roe v. Wade. The leak, blah, 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 the draft. I'm just gonna jump to where it says it. Yeah.
All right, what's
conservative-
whistling?
Sorry, it's
Shh, shh.
the Wordle group and me.
It's my text messages. Yeah, it says conservative Supreme Court Justice Barrett wrote a brief about abortion. She noted the USA needed a quote unquote domestic supply of infants to meet needs of parents seeking infants to adopt. She argued that mothers must birth their baby and give it up for adoption to meet market demands.
Wow.
Like we're fucking cattle.
Yeah.
But you know what? Interesting enough, I will, and again, here's where something I feel I can weigh in on, because now you're talking about one of the reasons why I didn't have children. I did not want to give birth. It did not interest me. Yes, pushing a big, huge head through my vagina just did not sound appealing. I admit it. It's not the only reason I didn't have kids, but I got to tell you, it was a huge motivating factor because I didn't want to have children. So I don't want to meet your supply chain demand.
When you were married, did you and your husband talk about having children?
Oh, before we were married, neither of us, I never wanted children from the start, from the day I was born. And it was funny because people always say, oh, you'll change your mind. You'll get old enough and I was just like, I don't, And he never wanted kids either. I mean, I'm not sure he ever really needed to get married either, right? So yeah, no, we both knew we didn't want kids, which is funny because he was a pastor, a youth pastor.
I know. So a youth pastor who doesn't want children. What was his reasoning behind not wanting
You know
children?
what? Actually, I highly respect his reason, and I've often used it. He was an environmentalist, and there's already a lot of kids in the world that we can't take care of, and
Yeah,
and
I totally agree.
we're a finite planet. So that was his mantra, and I was like, okay, I can get behind that one. I just don't want them. I just don't want to love them, love other people's kids, don't have an issue with kids, just don't want them. Did not want the responsibility. I'm a fucking hot mess, my friend. So why would I do that to a child?